Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining this Friday's Promap webinar. My name is Paul Marshall. I work as Account Director at Landmark, and also online is my colleague Nick Mills, who heads up our training team. Today's session builds upon the previous Introduction to Promap session. We intend to show you key tips and tricks, some cost-saving methods, and all the capabilities that are available to you to make your lives easier when you're using Promap for printing maps. Today, we'll be giving you some advanced tools so you can begin to customize the maps and get the data you require exactly as you need it. With your secure login for Promap, you can access the system via any internet browser. And today we'll show you how you can confidently use the system without racking up cost, how you can produce the maps and access the data you require, the formats and licenses you need, and how you can get ongoing support should you ever require it. Also in today's session, we'll be showing you some examples of how you can quickly measure and customize large areas with only a few clicks. We'll demonstrate a range of keyboard shortcuts to make your use of the drawing and measuring tools even easier, as well as introducing you to the range of print options we have to take your data out of the system. On the right-hand side of your screen today, you can download a copy of the latest Promap course companion, along with a Promap shortcut keys sheet to assist you when you're using the website. And if you do have any questions as we're going through the demonstration, please use the question facility on the same side of the screen, and myself and Nick will be on hand throughout the session and also available at the end for a full Q&A session. So we hope you find it useful and are confident in using Promap by the end. But a key thing to remember is that we're always on hand to help with its use. So please feel free to contact us post-session should you ever require it. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Nick now, who'll take you through the practical demonstration of Promap. So Nick, it's over to you.
Thanks, Paul. Well, as Paul mentioned, we're concentrating today on the printing element of Promap. So accessing your maps, map players, what tools are available on map players, and then looking in depth at the tools themselves. Now, for the purposes of today, I'm going to demonstrate Promap using Google Chrome. Personally, I just tend to find Chrome runs quicker for me than on other browsers. Let's say personal preference. But as Paul mentioned, you can now use it on any browser, any operating system. Now, when you go into Promap, enter your login details. We initially start on this screen here. Now, obviously, the first element, as far as print is concerned, is I need to bring up for the map of the site that I'm interested in. Now, I've got a number of options here. If it's a brand new site, I can use the search options in the top left-hand corner of the screen. There I can search by the address, tile grid reference, and I've got the option now to search by land registry title number as well. That particular search only currently available for England and Wales. We are hoping to open it up to Scotland as well at a later date. From a search point of view, it is worth being aware that title search does work slightly differently from the others. The address, tile, or grid reference searches, when you use them, will always initially open up your map on the open map player on the right-hand side. A free to view, free to roam layer, and that's true of all of the map players from aerial downwards in that list. They're all free to view, free to roam around on. And I'll touch on a couple of these as we go through the session today, because there are certain ones which are better options depending on what you're looking to print. It's also worth being aware of which tools are available on which of those layers, and I'll touch on that again as we go through. So when you use address, tile, and grid reference, as I say, it'll start you on open map. The land registry title search does take you straight into the OS master map topography layer, the detail layer for those of you that are familiar with the older versions of Promap. And just like the older versions of Promap, that layer, when you go in to look at a new site for the first time, you will pay a viewing charge on it. It is also the only map player that has any roaming charges on it. That being said, due to recent updates that have gone through, both the viewing charges and roaming charges have been significantly reduced on the system, and we've also increased the amount of free roaming that you get on that layer quite substantially. You now get 5.5 kilometers squared as opposed to 1 kilometer squared that you had before. So that's dramatically increased. The land registry title search, as I say, does take you straight into that layer, but very usefully from a customization point of view, what it will immediately do is apply your title outline onto the map. So certainly from a printing aspect, some of your work will have been done for you already. So you'll be into the master map layer, your outline will be on screen, and you can then start adding your customization to that as you need to. In terms of other options for opening your maps, if it's not a brand new map, if you want to look through your previously saved maps on the system. So these, in this version of Promap, are maps that you may have started work on, you've saved maps for that particular site onto the system, but you haven't actually printed or ordered from them as yet. So if you want to open your previously saved maps, click on the Open Save Map tab, it will take you into that area. All of the various search options are now on this one page. On the older versions, we used to have them split across separate pages. They're all on the one page now. Down the left-hand side, it will show you your 10 most recently accessed maps on the system. In the central section, all of the various folders and the maps saved into those folders. So you could just select those from there and see them. And if you click on a map and something has been ordered for it previously, it will already give you a little bit of a heads up on that. From the point of view of reusing orders, I would tend to advise you, rather than necessarily do that from here, you may well be better off doing it from the order history section, which I'll show you in a second. But as I say, this will at least tell you that there's orders been placed against those maps. In the top left-hand corner of the section, the keyword search facility, which will allow you to search all of your saved maps based on any of the information that you've entered into the map name, reference or description sections. And the one thing to be aware of when you are searching is this date filter in the bottom left-hand corner. Just be aware, due to the large number of maps that a lot of our clients have saved onto the system, we've introduced this date filter so that initially when you go in, it will only show you the maps that you've saved onto the system in the last 2 years. Just so that you've got your more current, more recent projects far more prevalent on the system and easier to access. If you want to update the date filters and look as far back on the system as access maps, you've got the ability to do so. Just be aware initially when you go in, there's a 2-year date filter on there. So that's our open map screen. One of the prerequisites of searching through your saved maps, you have to be able to save them in the first place. The icon for that is immediately to the right-hand side, and I will demonstrate that a little bit later in the session. The other areas probably to be aware of from a printing point of view, as you move across this top taskbar, the help section, which will link you through to the training website, to our customer services team. So if you've got any questions, queries relating to the system, they will be able to assist you there. The little shopping basket icon probably needs no introduction in this day and age and in the current lockdown climate. Everybody's ordering everything online, and it works the same way as a lot of online ordering systems. You just put your items that you're interested in into your shopping basket, check out the end when you're ready. So works on that sort of basis, and I will demonstrate it today. Probably the most important element, as far as certainly reordering or reusing prints that you've done, under the account section here is order history. Now you can access order history from here at any stage. This is also where you're automatically taken to now when you order anything from Promap. You will end up on this screen. In the central section, it will give you the details of your order, the high-level details, the date and time of the order, the products, the types, the references, the status of the order. On the right-hand side, under order details, it will give you the order number, the scale, paper size, orientation, and format that we used for that original print. Very useful if I'm trying to reuse this print going forward. Further down, tells me the license period for this map. Because on this version of Promap, exactly the same as all of our previous versions, when you pay to print a map, you are paying for a 12-month copyright license on that map. So you can reprint it for 12 months after you've paid the initial charge without incurring that initial charge again. Now, initially, once you've ordered something from the system, as I say, you'll be taken to this screen where it will give you a download file tab on the right-hand side. But if you want to reprint a map or edit a print that you've done previously, you also come through to this area. And once the map has initially been downloaded, that's where you will now find your reprint and edit print options in this area. And as I say, this is the area that you will come through to do that work now, rather than on previous versions where you might have gone through saved maps. In this version of Promap, into here for reprint or edit print. In terms of searching through your orders, down the left-hand side, you can search by keyword, order type, date range, license status, look purely at your orders, or the organization as a whole. So you've got various filters there that you can look at. I will return to this screen a couple of times as we go through the session as well, but that's order history. At the bottom of the screen, just to mention there, the bottom taskbar, because there's a couple of useful features in here as well. On there, it will tell you the map player you've currently got open. Will then give you the location information, eastern and northern coordinates, OS tile number, or national grid reference for wherever your cursor is positioned on screen. So if you are planning on customizing your map, you need to put outlines in and you're going to be using eastern and northern coordinates to do it off of, that tool will significantly help you in that particular area. Also on the bottom taskbar, when we're initially establishing that we've got the right site, even site information, Click on there, click on any point on the map, and it will immediately give you the eastern and northern coordinates of the point that you've clicked and the nearest postal address to it. So not just a useful tool from the point of view of printing, making sure you've got the right site on screen, but also for all the other areas of Promap as well, exporting, reporting, and so on. To the right of that, the site marker. We get a lot of calls from clients who say, I've still got my site marker on screen, I don't want it on the map, I want to get rid of it. You've now got a toggle option on the bottom taskbar that allows you to toggle that on and off as you need to on the system. To the right of that, your zoom options, very important when you are customizing your maps, certainly if you want to put detailed customization on, so you can zoom in using those, or you'll find the mouse wheel will also allow you to zoom in and out onto your maps as well. Down the left-hand side, the three different journeys that you can take through the system. The one that we're concentrating on today, obviously being print. Now, this is an area that has, up until fairly recently, caught people out on the system. The reason being, it used to be the case that when you logged into Promap, for no other reason than alphabetically, it was top of the list. It would automatically select the Export tab on the left-hand side. Now, the reason that this causes an issue is the draw and measure tools in this version of Promap are now directly linked to the task that you've got selected on the left-hand side. And people who are exporting or ordering reports don't need the same range of options as people who are printing. If you're exporting, you're just defining the area that you want to export out. You're not going to be adding text boxes. You're not worried about color schemes. You're not worried about adding other shapes onto the mapping. So it removes those options from the draw and measure section because they're not relevant to that particular task. The only time that you see the full range of draw and measure tools is when you've got the print tab selected. And if print is going to be the job that you're doing most often, what I recommend, and this is what we've done to try and make life a little bit easier, next time you log into Promap, select the print tab and use the option at the top there to make it your default. That way, every time you log into Promap afterwards, it will automatically go through to the print section. You'll know you've got the right area because it will immediately put your print frame on screen. You'll have all of your print options on the left-hand side. And when you click on your draw and measure tools, they will all be available to you. So those are our tabs on the left. On the right-hand side, the map layers, important, as I say, depending on what level of information that you're looking to print. You may use different layers there, and I'll touch on that in a second. Your draw and measure tools. Also, this is where you can access your viewable layers. So these are layers of data that you can overlay onto your mapping and get more information about your site. I'm not going to touch on those today. We are covering those, however, in an upcoming one of our Promap Friday webinars, and we're sending the details out about that within the next couple of weeks. So if it is something that's of interest, as I say, we will be covering that in far more detail then. As I say, for the purposes of today, we're concentrating on printing. So we've looked at the main areas on this screen as far as that's concerned. Let's now go in and do a practical example. So for the purposes of today, I'm just going to enter my postcode in here. What it will then do is give me all the addresses that fit that particular criteria. It will give them numerically and alphabetically to make your search easier. One other feature that you've got here, obviously, because it's giving you the full addresses straight away, you can also use this as a free address search or postcode finder. It's not going to restrict you to 10 or 12 searches a day, as other certain well-known websites do, or charge you for any over and above that. You can use this as often as you like to get the information that you need. Just select your property from the list. Promap will then do three things. Firstly, opens up the map of my site on that open map player on the right-hand side. As I say, where I've searched using the address information starts me on that free to view, free to roam layer, so I can make sure that I've got the right site before I go into that master map player and start incurring any cost. Also worth noting at this particular point, the way that Promap works, it's designed when you're searching for a new site to automatically look to see if anybody has ordered anything for that site previously, or has even just saved a map for that site previously. And if they have, in the top left-hand corner of the screen, you'll see these two sections telling you how many nearby orders there are, how many nearby saved maps there are, and giving you the option using the little eye links just to the right-hand side to go through to those areas, view those maps, and potentially reuse them. Saved maps can help you, obviously, in terms of avoiding the viewing charges on the master map player, if it's a master map layer that was used previously. Nearby orders can help you avoid the printing charge completely. There may be a map on the system that covers exactly the area that you need that you can reuse and avoid paying that charge again. So always keep an eye out for those too. Today, we're going to deal with this as a brand new map. Now, it started me on the open map layer. From a printing point of view, just a couple of others to mention here as well. The bottom two in the list, the 1 to 250,000 and mini scale. I mention these because these have a different pricing structure to the rest as far as printing is concerned. On the bottom two, it will cost you £2.51 to print, regardless of the area that you print. So if I print that map view as it is now on an A4 sheet of paper, £2.51. If I do a full map of the region on an A0 size sheet of paper, still £2.51, no difference in price. So when you're trying to print on a high level to show information like the position of all the sites, offices, depots that you're dealing with in a particular area, where your property sits in relation to the major commuting routes, towns, cities, villages nearby, it's ideal for that type of work because, as I say, you've got that one-off print charge. The other thing that you will find, the vast majority of the draw and measure tools available in Promap are designed to work across all layers. You've got the measure tool, length tool, the line tool, probably the best one for measuring lengths with. You can outline areas, you can add text boxes, shapes onto the map. On this map player, the same way as you do all of the others. Any tools that are grayed out just means that they're currently unavailable on the system. So with regards to the fill tool and snap to point, they're only available on the master map player. The new title fill tool, which I'll demonstrate as we go through, is available on all the map players from Open Map upwards. And because we haven't added any customization onto the map yet, at this stage, the undo and redo tools are also grayed out. But I will touch on all of these when we get to the draw and measure section a little bit later. So those are our bottom two layers. As you move up through the layers, you're going to get more and more information each time. The 1 to 25,000 is another very popular one from the point of view of printing. This particular map you've probably seen used very often on things like outdoor activity packs, environmental reports within leisure and tourism information, because it shows that information in more detail. So things are like on this map, nature reserves, golf courses, museums, heritage sites, marinas, all shown on there. It's also very useful if you're trying to look at infrastructure for the area. So you want to show the positions of all the schools in the vicinity of the property, hospitals, train stations. All of those are shown on here as well. And again, I've got access to all of the various draw and measure tools. So if all I need to do is indicate where those are in relation to my site, I could add that information on this particular layer, print it off from here, and keep down significantly the printing cost, which is displayed on the left-hand side of the screen. So it is a very useful layer if you are trying to put that infrastructure information in place. One of the popular tools used on this one is the line tool under draw and measure, because I can very quickly, by clicking on that, clicking on my site and then dragging the cursor to any of those points, in the shape properties box on the right-hand side, I can immediately attain the distance to that particular point. And if you don't want a straight line distance, you want to know the exact driving distance as an example. As I say, there's nothing stopping you clicking on the road system and finding it that way. So again, just using these higher level layers to get the information that we need, display it as we need it. Now, going back into our maps, the Open Map player. Now, this is the one it always initially opens to. And to be honest, personally, I don't tend to use it for much more than that. If I'm going to use a street level layer from a print point of view, I tend to use the one above it in the list, the Vector Map Local. Because whilst this one will give me major building outlines, areas of woodland, water, and the road system, the Vector Map Local, which we'll look at in a second, will give me significantly more. That being said, it is worth knowing a couple of things about this Open Map player. Firstly, the site information tool is available from this layer onwards up through the list, so it becomes active at this point. Also, under the draw and measure tools, the new title fill tool that I mentioned earlier is available from this layer upwards. So if I want to very quickly click on the map and apply a title outline, I can do that there. And as I say, that's available to me on Vector Map Local, Aerial, and Master Map as well. So, as I say, worth being aware that a couple of things become active once you've gone into this particular layer. Now, moving up through the layers, Vector Map Local, as I say, this is the street level layer I tend to use because I get far more defined building outlines, fences, field boundaries, pathways, cutting information, all of that sort of stuff is shown on here. And certainly if I'm doing a particularly large site for an outline, I would consider using this map for that particular purpose. You can find when you get into the master map layer, if you're doing very large sites, sometimes the cost can become quite prohibitive on that. So there's nothing stopping you going to this layer, outlining it on here. Obviously, you might have requirements as far as sort of accuracy, perhaps the submission that you're putting it towards requires that master map player. But if they don't, it is worth bearing this particular one in mind. You've got one more free to view, free to roam layer available to you as well. That's our area layer. The information for this provided by a company called Get Mapping, the same supplier that Google use. So you see the same images on here as you do on the Google site. But from there, we differ from Google in a number of ways. Firstly, in terms of licensing, a lot of people aren't aware that Google Earth, Google Street View, that range of products is not licensed for any sort of commercial purpose whatsoever, unless you've paid the additional license to Google to use it for that purpose. When you print the aerials from Promap, they automatically come with that licensing. Again, with printing in mind, the draw and measure tools. Vast majority of these, again, the fill tool and snap to point, the only ones not available on this layer. So again, I can outline areas, measure distances, add text boxes on here in exactly the same way as I can the map players we've looked at so far. And that can be particularly useful because the area layer will show me certain bits of information that even the master map player doesn't show well. Things like positions of trees, road markings, items like that, displayed on here, as I say, might not be on the master map. So we've touched on our free to view, free to roam layers. Let's now go into that master map player. Now, from an accuracy point of view, this is the best map player to use for your customization. You will get your most accurate measurements from here. Now, when you click on there, it will take you into the map player. You'll find your map options on the right-hand side change slightly. I'll explain those in a second. But it's also where we meet for the first time the dreaded expenditure details box. Now, Promap is very transparent with regards to any cost that you can incur on the system. In this case, it's the viewing charge. So it's brought out the box, it tells me what the charge is, what it relates to, and I have to enter my references before I proceed any further. So I enter those in, click accept. I'm now into my master map player. Now, from a printing point of view, the first thing to note on this is this layer will give you a choice of styles that you can apply, and that may affect how much customization you've actually got to add. The default map style that we've got here is color, very popular for things like property particulars, site location plans, things like that, because it has got a lot of color to it already. It's quite presentable as it is. I could literally just put an outline around my site, print it off from here. If I was doing any planning application or land registry work, I'd probably use the second of the map styles, black and white. A lot of local authorities will even insist on that for the submissions. But your outlines, customization that you can add, show up far more clearly against that black and white background. The third option that you've got, I mentioned before about the aerial photo and how that can give you certain bits of information the mapping doesn't. The third style that you've got is a hybrid, which will allow you to overlay one on top of the other. And I mentioned the extra information it shows, positions of trees, road markings, items like that. I can then see them on my map as well. And the little slider bar that appears underneath map style then allows me to control the dominance of the mapping data or the aerial data, depending on what my requirement is. As I say, where I've got the two combined, I can now start to use that aerial information as well on my map. Now, the only downside with the hybrid map style comes if you try and print directly from it. Because at this stage you're using a map and an aerial photo, it would charge you for both parts in your printing costs, so you'd end up paying more. The way I'd advise you to use it, put the two together as I've done here, use the draw and measure tools to mark on the information that you want. So I just want to indicate that roundabout on there as an example. Mark that information on, but before you print, if you revert back to either the black and white or the color, it will retain the information that you've added, but because you're no longer using the aerial photo element, you won't pay for that as well. So you get the benefit of both, but without incurring the cost. So that's our map styles. You've got the three available to you there. So we've looked at the various map players, map styles on the system. Let's now move on and look at the actual customization of the maps themselves. But just before I do that, I've just paid a viewing charge to go into this particular layer. We would recommend on a regular basis, but certainly when you've incurred any sort of cost on the system, save your map before you do anything else. So up to my save icon, click on there. What it will then do, bring up all of the various folders we currently have created on the system. So I can select the folder that I want to save it into from there. If I want to add a new folder of my own, the option for that is also in this area. As soon as I select the folder, it will drop the folder name into the right-hand side. Underneath that, I then just drop in the address of the property, which I always tend to put in the name, Into reference, perhaps I'll put in the client name, job reference, project number, whatever you would normally tend to enter at this point. Once you've entered all of that, just save your map. That map is now saved on the system till I decide to remove it. And whenever I open that map up going forward via the Open Save Map section, it will automatically update to give me the latest OS information available. So I'll always be looking at the most current mapping for my particular site. So I've got my map saved. I'm now ready to start adding my customization in. Now, we said before, when you select print, it puts the print frame on screen immediately. Two reasons for this. Firstly, as I'm adding my information using the draw and measure tools, I know in advance it's going to appear in my print area. What it also allows us to do is give you on the left-hand side the printing cost. So you've got that information up front. The print options allow me to change a number of different things. So I can alter the scale using the plus or minus options, the slider bar, or if I know the exact scale that I want, I can just type it into there. Paper size, available from A4 up to A0, so it depends what your printing capability is as to which of those options you'd go for. Orientation, portrait, landscape, your print's largely going to depend on the layout of your site for that as to which one you choose. Portrait will tend to favour this one, so it's the one I'll stick with for today. And finally, your print output. Now, depending on what licenses you've got with the Ordnance Survey, you'll find a number of options appearing in here. If you want to print your map to scale, we'd always recommend the PDF option. The PDFs, when they're created from Promap, saved onto your system, if you then send them through to a printer that's set to its standard settings, that will print off to scale and you are able to measure off it. If you just need an image to put into a document, scale is not required, that's where I would recommend the image option. And it will give you two options here. You'll be able to download it as a JPEG or a PNG. The only downside with images tends to be in the way that they're used. People will save the images onto their machines and then put them into things like Word documents, brochure software, items like that. The problem that you have is as soon as you put it, for example, into a Word document, the first thing the Word document will do is resize your image to fit the page. So if scale is important, PDF. If not, the image option is available to you. If you need both, and you have what they call a paper map copy license with the Ordnance Survey, you will have a third option available there as well. And this is literally there to speed up the order process for you. So if you do need both, rather than doing ordering one, then going back into edit print afterwards and ordering it in the other format, you can just order them both at the same time. And that's the one that I'll use for today, just to demonstrate that process. If you need to move your map beneath the frame to pick up particular features, just put the cursor on the map, hold down the left click button, drag it to where you want it. And once you've got it in the position that you want, just lock it on the left-hand side. Should you need to unlock the frame and reposition at any stage, you can do that throughout the customization process. But as I say, once you've locked it, it will stay in position whilst you're moving around. So I've got my frame on screen. Now I'm ready to start with my customization. Now, the first thing I'm going to do, my site marker, it's getting in the way a little bit now, so I'm going to take that off using that toggle option. We're going to start very basic. The building, number 2 in the center of the screen there. To begin with, all I want is the area and perimeter of number 2. Now, the quickest and easiest way of doing it on this particular layer is to use the fill tool, the first one on the top of the draw and measure tool section. All I need to do, click on there, click inside the boundaries of my shape. It will immediately apply a red outline around my site. If I turn off the fill tool and click back within that area, it will immediately bring up my shape properties box on the right-hand side. And in there, I can immediately get my area and perimeter measurements. I can choose which measurement unit I'm going to get those in. I can even very quickly add labels for those, which will put a text box on the map with that area information or perimeter measurement information inside it. And I'll demonstrate that in action a little bit later. Also under here, I've got the options to change the appearance of my shape. So my outline at the moment, not particularly visible on the mapping. So if I want to make the outline thicker, I've got some preset options that I can use to the right of line style. Or if I want to set my outline to a specific width, I've got the option to do that underneath. If I want to change the position of my outline in relation to the boundary line as it appears on the map, Very useful if you've got to mark out two adjacent properties, for example, and you don't want one of the outlines set on top of the other. You can keep your lines inside the shape. So you've got that option available to you there. If you want to go further than just alter the outline, you also want to apply a fill. There's solid and pattern fills that you can apply to your mapping. And for both the line style and fill style, you'll have a range of colors that you can apply as well. With regards to the fill style, when you initially apply that, if you do find that it obscures a bit of information that you want to see, one of the new features that we've added in around the color section in this version of Promap is this transparency bar at the bottom. So if I still want to be able to see the property number through that fill, I just drag that transparency bar across to the left, click choose. I can now see through my fill to the information underneath. So literally in a few clicks, I put an outline on my site. I've got my area and perimeter measurements. I've been able to change its appearance and make it stand out. If I want to add a label, as I mentioned, the add label option there, just click on that. That will then add a text box on screen. You can then reposition that text box where you need to. You'll find a rotate option on the bottom right hand corner. So if you want to rotate the text box so it's on the same angle, you can do that as well. So I can very quickly bring that in. For the text box, if I want to update the text, once I've clicked on it, the text properties box will appear on the right hand side. We can add my text in if I want to, change the size of the text, change the appearance of the text boxes, the same as I've done with the shape. So line style, change the thickness of the lines, the colors. I can add fills. So I can, if I want to, color code the text box to match my shape. Now, we've started to add information onto the map. At this point, I will introduce probably the most requested tool on the Promap system, certainly as far as draw and measuring is concerned, of the last 20 years or so. And that's our undo tool on the right-hand side. And this is one of the situations where it would commonly be required. You've just spent time outlining your site, you go to move the map, and you accidentally drag your shape. On older versions of Promap, that was a major headache, because there was no way that you could move that back into position, guarantee that you got it back in the right place. On this version, all you need to do is go to the Draw and Measure, to the middle row of Draw and Measure tools, and on the right-hand side, you have an undo and a redo option. Click undo. That will put it back in position. If, however, you decide you preferred that shape where it was, redo will allow you to put it back again. So it makes it far easier to repair any mistakes that you may have made when outlining your site in terms of accidentally dragging shapes. Also, when you're outlining, and I'll demonstrate this when we get to snap to point a little bit later, if you've clicked on the wrong point, undo will allow you to unclick from it as well. There's a couple of keyboard shortcuts around that also, which I'll demonstrate. So, as I say, that's our fill tool. Now, the problem with the fill tool is it will only do one shape at a time. That being said, it will fill any individual shape at a time. So it could be a building, back garden, pavement, roadway, field. If it's got its own self-contained outline, you can use the fill tool on it. The chances are, however, in most scenarios, you'll be required to outline more than one shape. So what we've added into this version of Promap to work alongside the fill tool is a merge tool, which allows you to merge any number of adjacent shapes together into one. Now, the first thing is you need to apply the fills to the shapes. So let's say I want to, even very basic on this shape. I've applied the outline to the building. I'm going to apply a fill to the back garden as well. Okay, because I want the total plot area. Now, at the moment, the fill tool has measured them separately. Now I want to merge them together to get one shape. So I just turn off the fill tool, click on the merge tool on the bottom row of Draw and Measure tools, and just select the shapes now that I want to merge together. It then merges them together as one. That's what the outline I've got there is for. That's what my measurement's for on the right-hand side. From there again, I can add my customization in, alter it as I need to. So again, in situations where you've got perhaps a number of shapes that you're going to need to go around the outside, use the fill tool on them, use the merge tool, join them together as one, and as I say, you can get your total area measurement that way. So that's using the fill tool. Now to the right of that, the title fill tool, the newest tool in the Draw and Measure section. Now I did demonstrate this a little bit earlier, because this particular tool, unlike fill and snap to point, which are only available on this particular layer, title fill is available to you on all the map players from open map upwards. All you need to do click on the title fill, click on the property that you're interested in. It will then apply the title outline on there. Now, you may come across scenarios where there's more than one piece of land tied to the title number that you've clicked on. This is where the title fill tool is not just good from the point of view of customization, but also information gathering as well. Because if you do have multiple pieces of land all tied to one title number, the piece of land that you've clicked on, it will outline in red for you. Any other pieces of land connected to that title number, it will immediately outline in blue. And if they're not immediately visible on screen, it will bring up a little information box on screen, giving you the eastern and northern coordinates for where those plots are located. So as I say, not just good from the point of view of customization, information gathering as well. As far as the customization of your map is concerned, once you've applied your fill on there using the title fill, you can work with it exactly the same way as the fill tool before. You can click on it, bring up the shape properties box, add your labels for your area and perimeter. Again, you can change the appearance of your shape, add your color schemes in, fade them if you want to, in exactly the same way. Even down to if you've got adjacent titles that you want to join together in one. As I say, I can just click on my title fill tool there, click inside that area, put my title outline on there, and then just use the merge tool to join the two together. And as I say, that is particularly useful when you've got to outline large areas, large land registry titles. That will significantly speed things up for you. So those are your two fill tools. We've touched on those. Now, probably the most used method traditionally on Promap for outlining sites is using a combination of snap to point and either the line tool for boundary measurements or the shape tool if I'm measuring areas. Snap to point, when you click on there, basically turns your outlining process into a glorified dot to dot. The dots that appear on screen indicate any changes in direction of the line that they're on. What do we join them up with? As I say, line and shape tool are going to be the main two. The line tool, if you want to measure boundary lengths, click on there, go to the first point on your boundary, click on it. You then go down the boundary, just clicking on each point as you go. And as you get close to a point, it will automatically lock to the point for you to make sure your measurement is accurate. When you get to the far end, either double left click or turn off the line tool, and that will finish the line for you. From there, you can click back on your line, and if you want to change the appearance of it, you can do so. So I've clicked back on my line there. Again, just like I did before, if I want to change the width of my outline, if I want to add arrowheads at either end to indicate that it's a boundary length it's referring to, I can do so. And again, when you're using the length tool, we'll give you the option to add a label with the length measurement inside it. So I can very quickly add it on using that. If you're outlining areas, it's a similar process. Turn on snap to point to add the points on there, but use the shape tool to join those up. Now, when you click on there, go around the outside of your site, it will add your outline on in blue. You'll also find this red line appearing. I particularly like this on this new version of Promap, certainly when I'm doing much larger sites. On the older versions of Promap, when you were doing big sites, it was very easy to lose the point of origin, the point where you started. In this version, that red line is always showing me where I'm working back towards. Now, as you're outlining, if you make a mistake, we've already mentioned the undo option that will allow you to undo the clicks. You've also got a keyboard shortcut as well. So if you don't feel particularly comfortable dragging your shape over there, you'll find that Control Z on the keyboard will also undo the clicks whilst you're in the process of outlining. So if you make a mistake whilst you're putting the outline on, there's a couple of things that you can do to rectify that. If you don't realize that you made a mistake until you've actually finished the shape, as I've done here, even then you haven't got to delete everything and start again. My first option is, if it's a very basic shape like this one, I can just reopen it and alter it. And I do that by left clicking on it and then pressing Control and Return on the keyboard. That has the effect of undoing that final click, reopening my shape, then allowing me to use Control Z from there to repair it. If it's a more complicated shape, let's say you've just spent 3/4 of an hour going around the outside of an absolute horror of a site, and you realize the second point that you've clicked on is wrong, the last thing you want to do in that scenario is reopen it, undo all of those clicks to repair that one, and then have to do them all again. So you've also got the option on the bottom row of the draw and measure tools to add or remove points to your outline. If you want to remove a point, very simple. Click on the add remove option, click on the point that you want to remove. So that point there, a little blue circle will appear around it. Single left click to take that point out. If you want to add points into your boundary, so let's say I want to alter this shape to include the property next door, I click on the add remove point tool, click on the boundary that I want to alter. The little blue circle will appear on that boundary. I just hover my cursor over the little blue circle, hold down the left click button, and then drag the boundary to where I need it to go. So I can very quickly modify my outline using the add remove point option to add points in, take them out if I need to. So we've looked there at outlining your areas, doing your boundary lengths. Now I mentioned before that you might come across some of these absolute horror sites. They've got loads of points around the outside. One of the keyboard shortcuts that you've got available to you in Promap allows you to join up multiple dots in one click. Now this keyboard shortcut works with both the line and with the shape tool. I'm going to use the shape tool to demonstrate it today. Now I want to go around the top bit of this site here. There's quite a few points on there. I don't want to have to click on all of them. So I click on the first point. Rather than clicking on all of these points now, I'm just going to hold down the space bar on the keyboard. And while I'm holding that down, I'm going to click on one of the points further along. What it will then do is automatically join up all of the points in between. So rather than having to click on 20 or 30 points around the outside of this shape, I can just click on 4 of them and I've completed my shape. And that spacebar tool will ensure that all of the points in between the two that you've clicked on are selected. So you know it's accurate, you're not going to miss any points, which is very easy when you've got them quite closely grouped together, as you can get on curves or corners, things like that. So make sure that you're going to pick all of those up. So that's our spacebar shortcut. In terms of other elements with the drawing and measuring tools, everything we've looked at so far, we've used the existing Ordnance Survey outlines to add information on. But what if I need to add on information of my own? A couple of ways that I can do it. If I'm adding basic shapes on, rectangles, circles, and the process for adding them on is the same for text boxes as well, I can click on that icon, click on screen, drag out to create my shape. Same for the circle, drag out to create it, text box, exactly the same again. With the basic shapes, the rectangle and the circle, once you've created those, you've now got the option in Promap, when you go to their shape properties box, to set the exact dimensions that you need for those. So if I need this shape to be 5 meters by 10 meters, I can set the exact dimensions in there for it. I've then got the ability, as we said before, to rotate that shape and reposition it wherever I want it on the map. Very useful if I'm doing sort of basic feasibility studies, things of that type. Circles, if I need my circle to be a specific radius to indicate a catchment area, turning circle, root base of a tree, something of that type, I just create the circle, go to its properties box, and there I can set the radius for that. So again, I can get these shapes exactly the right size. But those are very basic shapes. If I need to do something more complicated than that, I've still got options. When you're using the line or the shape tool, a couple of keyboard shortcuts again to make life easier. If when you're using the shape or line tool, you ever want to set the length of a line, just press L on the keyboard. We'll bring up a little dialog box where you enter in your length measurement, press return, and that is now set to that particular length. If you want to set a particular angle off of another line, the A key on the keyboard will allow you to set your angles off there. So as I say, if you need to do a more complicated shape, as long as you know its dimensions, the angles that the lines are coming off at, you can set it to the exact size that you require. So we've looked at how you can alter those basic shapes. Another option that you've got within the Promap system, you've got access via the shape section to drawing libraries. Now there's one drawing library in there already, the Promap Shapes library. And when you go into there, you'll find a large number of predefined plot sizes, basic house footprints, garage footprints, T markers, and a whole range of other symbols as well that you can apply onto the map. And to add them in, you simply click on them, it will drop it on the map. You can then reposition those, customize them as you need to from there. But you've also got the ability, if you wish, to create your own libraries and save those shapes into them. So this shape here is an example. Perhaps this triangle is one I'm going to use more often, and I want to retain it to use it on another map. So I've drawn the shape onto the map. I then right-click on it. Now, when you right-click on something that you've created on the map, this little drop-down menu will appear. There's a number of very useful options that you've got in here. If I use this shape as an example, I can copy and paste shapes. So if I need a duplicate of this one, I copy it, paste it, and I can immediately have my duplicates on there. Also under there, if I want to lock a shape in position, I can do that. The lock option also now available under the draw measure tools on the right-hand side as well. If I want to group a number of shapes together, so let's say I want to group these three, I click on them, then if I hold down the Shift key, it will allow me to select multiple shapes. I can then right-click on those and group them together as one. You'll also find, with regards to your shapes, let's just ungroup those because you've got the ability to ungroup them as well there. You can ungroup them. You can alter their position. So if you've got shapes that are on top of other shapes, you can send them to the back, bring them to the front, exactly as you would do if you were working with shapes in things like Word, PowerPoint, things of that type. So that's another useful option that you've got. Also from here, you can add to drawing libraries. I'll come onto that in a second. So we'll do that with our triangle. You've also got the ability, if you've locked your shape in position, as I've done here, to then go on and add a buffer to the shape. So if you've got a situation where you've got to show a 5-meter buffer around a particular site, you can use that buffer tool. We'll bring up that little dialog box. You can then apply your buffer on exactly as you need it. So a number of useful tools under there. Now I mentioned about the drawing libraries. Select the shape that you want to add to the library, right click on it. We'll then ask, once you've clicked on the add to drawing library option, it will ask you initially to create a new library for it. Create that new library, takes you into a save screen, very similar to the map save screen that we saw previously. Under there, you just create a folder that you want to save your drawing library into. Give the drawing library a name. Don't need to give it a reference here, but if you want to, you can, and then you just create your library. Now, I've created the library. I want to add my shape to it. Right click on it, go to add to drawing library. There is my new library that I've just created. Give the shape a name, reference, details about the shape very often added there, and then add it in. When I go back to my shape section now on the right-hand side, I've now got my two libraries in there, the Promap Shapes one and my test one. And if I want to bring other triangles in now, I can just click on them. And that library is saved onto the system. So if I want to use this triangle on another shape, all I need to do is open the map up for the new site, go to that shape section. It should remember your library in there, but if you want to open a different library, you've got the ability to open any other libraries that you may have saved onto the system as well. So by the use of these various draw and measure tools, as I say, there's a lot more that we can do onto the Promap maps now. Now I've covered all of the draw and measure tools in this section here. So let's move on now to the next stage. Let's say I've completed the little work of art that I want here, and I'm now ready to get it out of the system. I could just add it straight into the shopping basket on the left-hand side of the screen. If, however, you want to add headers, footers, company logos onto your map, use the print preview option. Now that will bring up your print preview, firstly showing you the information Promap's going to add. You'll always get a north point in the top left-hand corner. In the copyright information at the bottom, the plotted scale and the paper size. If you're using the master map player, you will also get a scale bar at this particular point as well. So that's already on there. On the right-hand side, I can upload my company logo into this logo section where it's then retained until I decide to remove it. To upload it, just click on the upload option, find where it's located on the system. The JPEG logo is absolutely fine here. Upload it and it will sit in this area here. All you have to do is decide where you want to put your logo. So I'm going to put one in the top left. Decide which logo you want to apply, and it will immediately bring it in. With your headers and your footers, you can just type those in there. Again, amend them as you want to. So if you want to make your text bigger, if you want to have the text centered into the middle, you've got the option to do it. So I've applied all of that there. Now, if you find that when you're producing your maps, your logo is always going to be in the same position and you always want the same wording for your disclaimer, as an example down at the bottom, you've got the ability at this stage to save it as a template as well. Once you've saved it as a template, it will then appear in this drop-down template list going forward. You just select the relevant template that you want and it will automatically apply those options in. So just another way we can enhance the appearance of our map. And once I've done all of that, I add it to the basket. From here, it will change the view basket, the icon on the left-hand side to view basket. My shopping basket icon is now showing I've got one item in there and the cumulative cost of everything that I've ordered so far. I'm now ready to check out. So I view the basket, I'm into this screen. Now I've already selected my PDF. I know I'm getting that, but I have to choose the image format that I'm going to get with it. I'm going to go for JPEG for today. It's the one that's most commonly tends to be used. So I've selected my formats, make sure that my references are correct in here. I submit my order. Now, before it takes me to order history so I can download it, it will prompt me once again just to save my map onto the system, just to ensure that I retain the customization on my save map that I've done on there. Click on save, confirm it. So I've got that saved, I'm into my order history. There's my map at the top, available to download almost immediately. From there, I just click on the download option. It'll bring up my download bar at the bottom of the screen. As I say, I've selected this as the PDF and image option. So it's going to give me a zip file that's got both contained in that particular folder. Looks as though it's taking just a couple of seconds to come through. Once the download is complete, I can click on there, click on my folder. My two items will be in there. And from there, I can decide whether I just want to print them off, save them down onto a particular area of my system. So that's if we were doing it as a new print. As I mentioned before, if I'm reprinting a map or editing a print, come into your order history, select the order that you want to reprint or edit the print on. So if I decide I don't like the customization on this one, select the edit print option and do your reprint and edit print from there. That will allow you to, as I say, open it from there. One area just to mention, if you are doing an edit of a print, it is an area that we're looking at and we're looking to update this sort of going forward on the system. When you go into edit print, if you change anything on the map, if you save it at that point and try and save it into your open save maps, it won't retain your information on there. We are working on that. The way to retain the information is go into edit print, update it as you need to, go through the order process and reorder it, and it then sits as an order on the system, and that will have retained your up-to-date customization. As I say, it's something we are looking at in the save map area. Just be aware, if you are going to edit a print and you want to save it, you do need to go through that checkout process to then save it as an order onto the system. So we've looked at the print element as far as Promap is concerned. At this point, I'll hand back to Paul just to finish the rest of the session. Paul, back over to you.
All right, thanks, Nick. Well, I hope you found that useful. I just wanted to point out that there are future webinars where you can build on the knowledge you've learned today and see some of the other areas which will help you get the most from using Promap within your workflows. Dates and times of that are on the screen now. We're doing an intro one. We're also going to be looking at our viewable layers product as well. So just look out for that in various emails and the adverts on LinkedIn. For today, please remember to download the companion on the right-hand side of the screen, and our details are now on screen, or should be on screen. So should you ever have any queries with Promap, please do get in contact with myself and Nick, and we can help support you in the right direction. If you've got any questions that you've seen today, please feel free to use the question facility on the right-hand side of the screen, and myself and Nick will stay online for a few more moments to answer them for you. There have been a couple fly through, Nick. You might want to just demo them.
Yeah, no problem at all.
Questions that they are. First one that's come through said, when I tried Promap myself, I didn't see the same tools that you seem to have. Why might that be?
Yeah, I suspect that's to do with what we mentioned at the start there about having the right tab selected on the left-hand side. As I say, in this latest version of Promap, the draw and measure tools directly link to the task that you undertake. And with the export and report ordering elements, there's certain tasks that aren't relevant to those, or certain tools that aren't relevant to those. So it just takes those out. So if you go in and you find that you've lost your text box tool, the shapes library isn't available, things like that, it's just that the wrong tab is selected on this side. Select the print tab, you'll have the full range of draw and measure tools. But as I say, if print is the job that you're doing most often, select print when you next go in and make it your default tab. That way it will automatically open up to that going forwards. And when you click on your draw tab, you'll have all of the tools available to you.
Okay, thanks for that. Another one that's come in, what's the best way of editing a map once I've created it?
Yeah, as I say, this is a sort of one of the major changes between this version of Promap and older ones. In this version of Promap, if you want to alter a map that you've already printed, you go to the account section into order history. That's where it will display all of your orders. Just select the relevant order from there, and that's where you'll find the reprint and edit print options for it on the right-hand side. Just select the relevant one and go through the order process from there.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks for that, Nick. Well, look, there don't appear to be any other questions coming through right now, but if you think of anything, please do use that question facility on the right-hand side, and myself and Nick will stay online and answer them for you. Also, our contact details are on screen with the upcoming webinar schedule, so again, look out for that. If any of your colleagues might benefit from it, or you want to build up your CPD hours at the start of the year, please do sign up for them, and hopefully we'll see you on a few of them shortly. If not, thanks for your interest in Promap today. That's the end of the webinar. Have a great weekend, and we hope to be in touch with you soon. So stay safe, and for today, goodbye.